It is now 7 p.m., and I am reconvening to open session and calling to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Indian Prairie School District 204 on Monday, September 12, 2022. Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Fosdick,
Here.
Ms. Jane,
Here.
Mr. Karubas,
Here.
Mr. Rising,
Here.
Ms. Donahue,
Here.
Ms. Deming,
Present.
and Ms. Grover.
We have a quorum. Ms. Fosdick, will you lead us in the pledge? Our next regular board meeting will be held on Monday, September 26th. So we have one board salute. Ms. Grover.
District 204 high school students provide support to students in need. The board salutes 3 District 204 high school students for providing support to students in need. Waubonsie Valley seniors Ryan Lee and Drew Taylor collected school supplies and gift cards for their former school, White Eagle Elementary, and Nequa Valley Junior Neil Venkatesh collected school supplies during his summer break for District 204 students in need. Thank you, Ryan, Drew, and Neil, for your contributions to support your fellow students in our community.
Okay, next is our student representative report by Saad Qureshi from Mattia Valley High School. Welcome. Good evening. All right, no.
Hello. Oh, there we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Saad Qureshi, and I'm the Executive Board representative for the class of 2023, and I'm very excited to join you all tonight. Freshman orientation went off without a hitch. Over 600 freshmen entered the halls of Mattia Valley and learned where they will be for the next 4 years. Mattia Life Leaders have been working hard with presenting weekly SEL lessons. These lessons will continue throughout the first semester. Students from the Principal Advisory Board volunteered at the back-to-school bash at Martin Luther King Park, where school supplies, shoes, clothes, and haircuts were provided to students that needed them to have a successful school year. Mattia Valley Student Government will be hosting an out-of-this-world themed homecoming that will take place on September 24th. The week leading up to homecoming will be packed with fun activities such as t-shirt dyeing, pie your teacher in the face, and chalk the walk. The week will also be kicked off with a pep assembly where Mattia's a cappella groups, Apollo and Muses, will be performing. The end of the week will conclude with another pep assembly hosted by the MCs, Masters of Ceremonies, which will include games and performances from the dance team, cheer team, and orchestra's dance team. Mattia Theater just started rehearsals for Radium Girls, a dramatic and historical show based on a very true and unfortunate story. MVHS Theater is also introducing another fall show for the first time ever, Jack and the Magic Bean. The play is based on a comedic retelling of an old fairy tale. The theater department cannot wait to see the success of the introduction of their new children's show and take on their own historical piece. The marching band participated in the Labor Day parade that took place on September 5th and spread Mattia music throughout the streets of downtown Naperville. Keep up the good work, Music Mustangs. Mattia Valley hosted athletic camps over the summer. This enabled Mustangs that have not tried a sport yet to get their foot in the door and try a new sport. Mattia Valley hosted their very first home football game of the season against Belleville East with a packed student section ready to cheer on the football team. Saw Mr. Rising there. All fall sports are starting the season with high hopes and with the intention to crushing the competition. I'm sure I missed some events, so you're just going to have to stop by our trophy cases to see all the awards and wins our hardworking Mustangs have earned. That's all I have for the September board report, Thanks, everyone. Stay safe, and as always, go Mustangs.
Thank you. It is now time for public comment, and 60 minutes is allowed for public comment. Each person is limited to 3 minutes. When addressing the board, we ask that you respect the confidentiality and safety of our students and school district personnel. We also ask that those addressing the board be cognizant that this is an open meeting and is available to all age groups, and as such, ask that you consider who the audience members are this evening and keep comments age appropriate. Public comment represents the voice and opinion of the speaker. There will be no feedback from the board members during the meeting, but follow-up will be provided by an administrator as appropriate. Although this is not required, it is helpful for the board to know whether the comments and concerns we hear are being raised by residents. So we ask that you state if you live in the district and if you currently have children in our schools. We have 8 speakers tonight, and the first speaker is Sunil Narayana. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity once again. I live in the Eagle Point neighborhood, and my son goes to Still Middle School. He's in 7th grader. I'm here to talk about the bus transportation issue that we are going to be facing from the upcoming year. So, we had submitted a request to the Aurora Police Department regarding the first information rights, the request asking for the number of incidents that happened so far this year on that Montgomery Road, because every once in a while we can hear the police sirens happening, and so we submitted the request. They gave us the details, the complete numbers, and to summarize, this year so far there have been 34 police recorded incidents that happened involving vehicles. This is on the stretch of Montgomery Road from the Normantown until that White Eagle Drive, that section. Pulling this down, when we say 34 so far, it comes to roughly about 4 incidents in a month, and that's about 1 every week. The very crux of the reason why any of these incidents happen is the carelessness or the impatience of a driver who's involved in the vehicle. If this is what is resulting with the carelessness and impatience of X number of drivers who have been driving in the street, come next year, the buses are not there, you're throwing another bigger chunk of children who are equally going to be careless and impatient. What is the outcome of this? Any one incident that goes to involve any one student, there is only going to be a single resonating voice if only the bus was there. That is what I want to avoid and bring it to your notice, because there is still something that the board can decide and do, doing an assessment and providing the two additional justification points and getting an exemption for the neighborhoods living in the south of Montgomery Road. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Alicia Smith.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about the inequities of the 204 school district toward our title elementary schools and the subdivisions where they are. If you take a look at the busing situation, every single subdivision where an Aurora title school is located is denied busing to at least one of their schools, even though other subdivisions who also are less than 1.5 miles and have similar hazards are given busing. Let's take the example of where Georgetown is located. The Georgetown subdivision and the subdivision where McCarty is located do not receive busing to Waubonsie Valley High School because they are less than 1.5 miles and because their traffic hazards are not considered high enough in order to warrant busing. Yet, the neighborhood or the subdivision of Oakhurst that is south of McCoy is less than 1.5 miles and don't even have to cross the intersection because they can use the Park District Bridge and Park District Path, yet they are given busing. And the Park District Bridge and Path is a route the district uses because that's how Gombert Elementary students get to Gombert Elementary School and one of the routes they would take to walk to Fisher. If you go a little bit up the street, Stonebridge is right across the street from Mattia Valley High School. They are less than 1.5 miles from Mattia Valley High School. They have one intersection across, Eola, which is the same intersection that McCarty and Georgetown both cross. Yet, Stonebridge receives busing to Matia Valley High School. If you go over to the south end of the district, Ashbury is less than 1.5 miles to Neuqua Valley High School. They get busing even though they cross Book Road, which is not as large of a hazard as either Ogden or Eola. If we now go to our middle schools, as you know, if we've been talking about, Gombert is denied, the subdivision where Gombert is, which is an Aurora Title School, is denied busing to Fisher Elementary, even though the subdivision to our west is granted busing. They put a crossing guard there to lower the hazard, but it only lowered the hazard for us. The hazard for the other subdivision hasn't been done in over 10 years. They are granted busing, we are denied. If you go to the other side of the district, Breckenridge is less than 1.5 miles from Gregory Middle School. Their hazard rating hasn't been done since I was a middle schooler at Gregory Middle School, which was in 1991. They receive busing to Gregory Middle School. White Eagle, as we know, receives busing to Still for this year.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is David Kalina. David here. Go ahead. Yeah.
I would like to thank the board president and the board members and Superintendent Talley for giving me this time. My name is David Kalina. I'm a Project Arrow teacher at Georgetown Elementary, a former member of the strategic planning team, as well as a writer of District 204's math curriculum. I'm also a stroke survivor, so please bear with me on the timing. So I frequently run over my tongue and have to reorganize my thoughts, and they're not all out here. The one area I want to focus on with the strategic planning is priority 1, objective 2, strategy 2, that says review the current curriculum through the lens of student achievement and equity and student engagement and adjust accordingly. I would make the argument that our math resource at the elementary level is not meeting the needs of our students. We have used it for 7 years, especially in this post-pandemic environment. It does not have the resources to either reach the enrichment level for those kids who need it or for the readiness or the ones who are struggling. And I can provide data with that later, that this adjust accordingly is too nebulous. There needs to be a route where the teachers are brought into the decisions that are being made. Please don't just make the change without, as we used to do, bring in representatives from all the schools to evaluate those resources and see how we can meet the needs of our students in such a way to truly get them to that meet their greatest potential, because our resource is not doing that right now. Over. Thank you for your time, and I probably went over, but thank you for not.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Veronica Andrade.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Veronica Andrade. I have 3 children, all attending Gombert Elementary, and this is the 3rd board meeting where I stand with fellow Gombert attendance area families to speak out of the safety dangers and equity disparities that result from refusing to bus Gombert area families to Fisher Middle School. The district is obligated to make equitable decisions to all the students in 204, whether they live in affluent subdivisions or subdivisions that feed into Title I schools when it comes to learning and bus transportation. Currently, the district is busing students to schools when those students do not meet the criteria to receive busing. This year, the district is only making Gombert area families adhere to this busing criteria. That is inequitable. Ron Johnson says that the district will be reviewing other areas, focusing on high school students in the next few years to determine if those students meet the busing criteria. Ron Johnson also stated the work involved in redoing these hazards for all district neighborhoods was labor intensive, yet it took the district less than 6 months to determine that the Gombert area neighborhoods did not meet the criteria. And after doing our own research, as Ron Johnson suggested, in a matter of a few days, using the district's own transportation tracker, we were able to pinpoint multiple subdivisions and addresses that are okay to ride, that do not meet the busing criteria. Until the district holds all students to the busing criteria to their designated schools, it is inequitable and discriminatory to make busing criteria only apply to the Gombert area families and similar families within our district. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Vanessa Sanchez.
Good evening. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. My name is Vanessa. I am the parent of 2 kids in the district. One is a junior at Wabansie and one is a 4th grader at Gombert. I live in the Colony Lakes subdivision right off of Eola. This is the 3rd meeting also that I'm coming to. And I didn't prepare anything formally, but I feel like everyone has gone over numbers, statistics, numerous reasons, hazards, and I feel like it's falling on deaf ears. I feel like no one is responding. This is a school board where we're supposed to bring concerns to. And no matter what facts or inequities we're putting or bringing up to the board, nothing is happening. And I feel like we are beating a dead horse, but we'll continue to show up. I'm a nurse. Every day I either go down Eola or Montgomery. Those are my only 2 routes. And I will tell you, since the school started, the number of kids that I see walking to the middle school late every day, at least 1, if not 2. Today on Montgomery Road, going east, in between Eola and Normantown, it was 8 o'clock in the morning. There was what I can only imagine is a middle schooler in the rain, kneeling down his bicycle with it turned upside down because the bicycle chain had fallen off. And the problem and the sad thing is I couldn't even pull over to help him because there's no safe way to pull over. There is no side road. Nobody could help him. And we're doing a lot of facts, but there has to be a point where common sense takes over. And I know that this board and there are other people besides, we don't have the power to change. We're just here bringing up matters. But I feel like the board of the school should have the power to listen and to make changes. I mean, that's what we're all here for. We're all here for the kids. And to be quite honest, I'm tired of seeing the kids that are walking late because it's the same kids every day. It's not different ones, it's the same. And so this is on a rainy day where it's 60. Imagine when it starts snowing. It's just not fair. It's inequitable. And I would please really consider reinstating bus service because the situation is only going to get worse with the weather. And honestly, nobody wants kids to be truant, late. It doesn't help their education. We just want them to get to school, to have a safe place to do it, and for them to be to school on time so they can learn. That's what everybody wants. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kim Johnson.
Hello. We have raised 3 children in District 204, and our youngest has 1 year left at Mattia Valley. The DuPage Policy Journal is a free newspaper publication that contains vital information that Illinois residents need to know about local government policy, laws, and practices that are being implemented or allowed under our noses, largely without our knowledge, It's information that the mainstream media withholds because they know it will cause an uproar of dissent if we know about it. The latest issue of the DuPage Policy Journal was a special sex education edition. It revealed shocking examples of actual sexual indoctrination cases that are happening in our local schools and libraries. Some examples are tampons in boys' bathrooms for cross-dressing girls, a teacher encouraging the third grade boys in his class to polish their fingernails, and students to change their pronouns and gender. An upcoming October 11th drag queen bingo event at Downers Grove Library that includes a drag performance. Most shocking is a book called Gender Queer in some libraries, which is a cartoon story, pornography book that graphically depicts 2 high school boys engaged in oral sex, and the private parts are not covered. This is all approved by Governor Pritzker. Instead of leaving these topics to be discussed and decided at home with parents and guardians, he already signed a bill into law called Senate Bill 818, which establishes a new controversial sex education curriculum for grades K through 12. The stated reason for this curriculum is so the indoctrination can happen before heterosexual values and assumptions can become more deeply ingrained and take root in them. Kindergartners need to learn that they shouldn't automatically accept the gender they were born with. Third graders will learn how to take hormone blockers to change from a boy to a girl or vice versa. 6th through 12th graders will learn how to perform anal and oral sex, withdrawal, condom wearing, and pregnancy options, including abortion. Teachers will also be required to affirm students' non-traditional identities, such as allowing them to come to school dressed as cats or dogs wearing full head-to-toe animal costumes. In this bill, all girls' bathrooms have been banned by Governor Pritzker. The Pritzker family has donated millions and millions of dollars that have gone to programs that partner with public school districts, including in Naperville, to promote the myth of biological sex, providing artificial penis packers, female chest binders, stand-to-pee devices for minors, and LGBTQ-friendly sex toy shops for teens. 27 of 42 DuPage school districts have already opted out of this curriculum, but as of the publication of this paper, districts 203 and 204 had not responded. I am begging this school board to vote to opt out of this sex ed curriculum, or you will disenfranchise the vast majority of your population, which supports education but not indoctrination. If you do not opt out, I encourage all parents to choose alternative education for their children, such as homeschooling or private school. And check out www.dupagepolicyjournal.com. Thank you. Thank you.
The next speaker is Mahindra Basarati.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mahendra Basreddy. I live in Eagle Point subdivision. I have a daughter that goes to Still Middle School. I'm here for the bus transportation that for the coming years. Thank you for giving us the bus for this year. But here we're talking about the safety concerns and other concerns that all the parents are talking about. So we have been getting this bus for last 20 years that I mentioned, 25 years. I don't know what changed suddenly. Now you guys are planning to stop the bus. Does not make sense. As other parents said, year by year or month by month, there is more traffic and more accidents. I don't know why now it's suddenly the decision to stop the bus. That does not make sense. Again, it's a small subdivision. Some kids and houses are within 1.5 miles, and some is more than 1.5 miles. So some kids will get the bus, some kids don't get the bus. Even though they're in the same subdivision, even neighbors, one neighbor will get the bus, one neighbor don't get the bus. If the bus is coming to the subdivision, one bus is enough. Right? Just take all the kids and go. That is the safety concern, that all the parents have talked about. Then I'll just focus on the ESG as well. I think I mentioned same thing last time also. Environment, right? If you stop the bus, all the 40 kids or 50 kids needs to go by cars. If the kids parents have the cars, they can take by. Most of the parents, Chicago area, it's a joke to people to, in the winter, who will walk and who will bike, unless if they have the financial problems. The parents don't have the cars and cannot drop. That's again the problem. So most of the parents will drop the kids in the by cars, and it's a pollution, and it will add the carbon footprint. And that is why I think we need to promote the bus, public transportation for everybody. And then the social impacts, kids who takes the bus, they will have the better friends and better social skills and better mental health. That is the social impact. Again, working parents, if the two parents or one parent is working, it is very stressful for the parents to drop the, they have a responsibility to obligation to drop the kids to school. If they have 2 or 3 kids, they have to drop to elementary school, they have to drop to, middle school or high school, depends on where they live. And it's stressful for the parents to take care of the transportation. If we can give them the public transportation option for everybody in the school district 204, irrespective of it is 1 mile or 1.5 mile, it helps the parents, happy parents, healthy parents, and productive community. It will attract the more working parents to the our 204 district school district. So that is as a 204, I think we have all the resources. We can make.
Ms. Donahue, the speaker time is ended.
Thank you very much. And the last speaker is Samir Manakar.
Good evening, everybody. I'm also, like my 2 fellow speakers who went ahead of me, a resident of the Eagle Point subdivision. I have 2 daughters. One is a senior at Wabansi. The other is a middle school 7th grader. And I'm also here to talk along the same lines about the bus transportation for the subdivision. I won't go into too many details. They've already talked about it. I'm just here to voice an additional voice of concern for the lack of bus transportation for the upcoming years for the school, for the subdivision. We have talked about safety, talked about weather-related, social impacts, etc. So I just think the board should really consider the request from the members of the subdivision. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We now move to our consent agenda and superintendent report. We will start with the superintendent report. Dr. Talley.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue, members of the Board of Education at Indian Prairie Community. We have completed 3 weeks of school, and this beginning has been outstanding from many perspectives. Athletics has started, book fairs are in place, volunteers are in school, curriculum nights have been held. We've had only 1 day of indoor recess, so it has been a good beginning to the school year, and we're very happy about how the year has progressed. The district's theme this year is community. As a community, we are stronger together than individually. Reflecting that community spirit, I'd like to mention a teacher and what she did to support her school community. 3 of the 4 supported ed teachers were absent for a few days from May Watts. Ms. Mary Pat Gerber, one of the 4 supported ed teachers, designed schedules for all of the TAs and related service providers to ensure that the safety needs of the students were met. She met with the whole team before school started. Ms. Gerber, in responding to a congratulatory email, said, quote, "We are a community and a team at May Watts. All capital, we got this." This is an example I share. It's just one of many being done in our schools. Our staff, all of them, are wonderful. It is a community that makes it all work. On Thursday of last week, we held our first Parent Academy focused on safety and security. I want to thank Mr. Ron Wilkie, School Safety, Security, and Emergency Preparedness Coordinator, for helping to put together the event. I also want to thank the representatives from the Naperville Police Department and the Aurora Police Department for participating. The event was taped and is now available on our website for those who were not in attendance. IPPC has started its annual coat drive. For the last several years, IPPC has held this coat drive accepting new and gently used clean winter coats and accessories to include boots, snow pants, hats, scarves, and mittens. Families who have a need can contact their school social worker to ensure that any needs are met. Now I'll turn it back to you, Ms. Donahue.
Okay, next we move to our consent agenda items. I need a motion and a second for approval of consent agenda items D through G.
This is Allison Fosdick. I move that the Board of Education approve consent agenda items D through G as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Karubis,
Yes.
Ms. Fosdick,
Yes.
Mr. Rising,
Yes.
Ms. Jane,
Yes.
Ms. Deming,
Aye.
Ms. Donahue,
Yes.
and Ms. Grover.
Yes.
The motion passes, and I want to offer my congratulations to all of the hard work that went into the strategic plan, which was part of the consent agenda. We discussed it at our last meeting, so thank you to all. It was a big effort from many, many people in the district, administration, teachers, students, community members, and I think it's an outstanding piece of work for our district, so thank you. Okay, now we will have a presentation from Doug Carius and Grant Sarah regarding the health education.
Great.
Welcome.
Good evening, Dr. Talley, Board of Education members and community. I am joined this evening by Grant Sarr, who is our Director of Elective Curriculum, and we just wanted to provide an update and some information to the Board of Education. There's been a lot of information out there about sex education, and that falls within our health education. And we just wanted to provide information to the Board of Education and hopefully be able to answer any questions related to that. Sorry, went too far. All right, the purpose of this evening is just to provide an overview of the legislative mandates, Senate Bill 818 and Public Act 102-0522, summarize comprehensive personal health and safety and sexual health education in Prairie 204, review the new Illinois comprehensive sexual education topic strands, and review our current notification and opt-out policies. In August of 2021, Illinois passed the Keeping Youth Safe and Healthy Act, which is Senate Bill 818. Public Act 102-0522 is signed into law with an August 1st, 2022 deadline for ISB adoption of learning standards. In January of 2022, Illinois State Board of Education releases its initial frequently asked questions document. In July of 2022, ISBE adopts the National Sex Education Standards as the new Illinois Learning Standards for Sexual Health Education effective July 13th, 2022. Alignment of sexual health education curriculum and instruction to the new Learning Illinois Standards is effective immediately. And then in June and July 2022, Indian Prairie School District 04, we initiate just a review of mandates and curriculum. This was one of the, we always get information on new school laws, and so this was something that came out from the Illinois Association of School Boards, their summary, which states the act requires school districts that deliver comprehensive sexual health education to utilize a standards-based sex education course for 6th through 12th grade. They may provide age and developmentally appropriate consent to education for kindergarten through 5th grade students. It also includes school disclosure, parental requests, and notice of the program, and allows school districts to collaborate with public health departments to identify a point of contact for inquiries and comments about course instruction and materials. We've tried to gather more information about this, reaching out to our Regional Office of Education, trying to get guidance on what this means, since we have in the past provided course parts of sex education within health education, and trying to get clarification of what does this mean per grade level, where does this fall in? And we do find that there's a lot of vagueness around that, and are still trying to get clarification from some of those that we are working with. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Grant to talk a little bit about just the mandates, the kind of the definitions, the alignments, those types of information.
Thank you, Doug. So let's take a little time to talk about some of the things that we know.
is in the mandate. The first thing are some definitions. With the new legislation,
Microphone.
the term,
Is this working?
oh, I'm hearing myself a little bit. Hello?
That's better.
All right. I'll try to get really in there. The term family life and sex education has now been broken into two headings in the definitions. Comprehensive personal health and safety education, and this is the term used for instruction pre-K-5, and comprehensive sexual health education, the term used for grades 6 through 12. So the Act defines comprehensive personal health and safety education and comprehensive sexual health education as age-appropriate and developmentally appropriate education that aligns with the national sex ed standards and the strands that are associated with it. One thing that we know is that, of course, with all of our curriculum, we can select our resources and our curricular materials, and the ability for us to do that still remains. So we have control over the resources and how we go about that selection process. However, those adoptions may not interfere with the course alignment to the personal health and safety education and comprehensive sexual education learning standards. And finally, the legislation stipulates that we cannot adapt or change those standards in any way that would conflict with the legislation and the mandate. So we'll talk a little bit about how we arrived at the new Illinois learning standards through the evolution of the national sex education standards. The first version from 2012 had the topic strands in the left-hand column. Healthy relationships has been edited slightly in the 2020 topic strands. It is now titled Consent and Healthy Relationships. And this change is intended to emphasize the concept of consent and the idea of bodily autonomy in an effort to keep students safe from child predators. And this really complements the Aaron's Law instruction. It also helps lay the groundwork for a better understanding of sexual relationships later on in life. Puberty and adolescent development becomes anatomy and physiology stays the same across the board. Puberty and adolescent development, we have the word sexual added, so it becomes puberty and adolescent sexual development. The intent here in adding the word sexual was so that this strand can focus solely on adolescent sexual development and not all the other aspects of adolescent development. The identity strand from 2012 is now broken into two strands, gender identity and expression, and sexual orientation and identity. So the creation of these two topic strands, the breaking it into two, reflects that these are two unique areas of identity and shouldn't be conflated with each other. The next area takes those four topics and combines them into an umbrella term called sexual health to better reflect the overlap in knowledge and skills necessary for the prevention, care, and treatment of pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. And finally, personal safety has now become interpersonal violence, and this is to better reflect a variety of violence that may occur in a variety of relationships. So, Illinois has adopted the new revised national sex education standards and those topic strands, and so these are the topic strands we have from the updated set of standards. And on the right, you can see here really one of the core intents of the legislation is that the course material and instruction shall be inclusive and sensitive to the needs of students based on their status as pregnant or parenting, living with STIs, including HIV, sexually active, asexual, or intersex, or based on their gender, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, sexual behavior, or disability. So, we came together over the summer, a team of high school health teachers and a team of middle school health teachers to take a look at the legislation, to take a look at these new standards, and to talk about our current practice. We also talked a little bit about what our current alignment looks like and what it could look like. So our current practice is that in grade 5, we have instruction in a one-day, approximately 1 hour growth and development presentation that includes anatomy and physiology, puberty, reproduction, and pregnancy. In grades 6 through 8, students get 1 quarter of health education each of those years. And in the 6th and 7th grades, the current sex education unit is approximately a week, and in 8th grade, it is 2 weeks. And topics currently include 5 of the topic strands, with the exception of gender identity and expression and sexual orientation and identity. And in high school, all of our students have health education sophomore year as part of their PE rotation, and then we have an elective class called Advanced Health in grades available to students in grades 11 and 12. In the required sophomore health class, there's approximately 3 weeks of sexual health education, and in our conversations, we are currently covering all of the topic strands in both our sophomore sexual health education unit and our advanced health class. So on the next slide, you can see that all summarized for you with the new topic strands and where we're at in each particular grade level, and you can see the progression of how we advance through those various topics. So that's where we sit with our current curriculum.
The other part of this that we wanted to talk about is just our notification and opt-out policies. So parent notification and opt-out, which the current practice will continue, which is notice will be sent home to parents or guardians at least 2 weeks prior to instruction. Notice shall include the anticipated schedule of instruction, available parent resources, how parents or guardians can ask questions about the instruction, and how to opt students out of the instruction. A parent or guardian may request that their child be exempt from the comprehensive sexual health unit in accordance with Board Policy 6260. So those are requirements and what our current practice has been and will continue to be, which is to notify and provide that opportunity for opt-out if requested. So with that, we wanted to be able to answer any questions that the Board of Education may have.
Thank you. Mr. Rising.
If you could go to slide 10. Okay, so here's my question. The first question is, grade 5, it says that there is 1 day currently that we teach sex ed that focuses on anatomy, physiology, puberty, reproduction, and pregnancy. Is anything changing from the way we are currently doing things to the future?
No, we have no plan to make any changes
Okay.
this year.
Thanks. Do we currently teach sex ed in grades K through 4 in our district?
No.
Thank you. Grades 6 and 7, we teach 1 week of sex ed in grades 6 and 7 and 2 weeks 8th grade. Do we have any plans to change our current practice from the way we're doing things right now?
Oh, we don't.
Okay, thanks. In grade 10, do we have any plans to change our current practice in sex ed or the way we're currently doing it right now?
We don't. The only thing we may do there is talk amongst the faculty of the 3 buildings and make sure that the current content is aligned.
Okay.
So no new additional content.
Okay, cool. And the way that I understood what the state put forward is that individual districts always have the flexibility to determine the curriculum that they feel is right for their particular district. Did I interpret that the right way?
Yes, there are only a few mandates that are required of us. There is no time mandate or grade level mandate for K-5, and there's a one semester grades 6 through 8 amount of time that needs to be spent on health education, and the same for high school. Other than that, we have the latitude to go wherever we want.
And I think people are focusing, zeroing in on that sex part of health education. It is far more than sex education. There is a large, in fact, I would venture to say the majority of that area that we've been doing at a district for the last 30 years has focused even more on that health part, correct?
Sure.
I mean, it really, okay. And Doug, I found the answer to our question. In our area in DuPage County, sex ed or health ed has been taught in public schools since 1974. So it has been close to, well, almost 50 years, 48 years. And then if you go to slide 13, just to reiterate, I know you just went over this, but all parents at all grades where sex health is being taught, so essentially 5th through 10th, will get a notification and they can choose to opt out their students, correct?
They will get a notification at least 2 weeks before and would be able to opt out of those.
Okay. And they can ask
related to
questions
sex
to their,
education.
they can ask
Correct.
questions to their school of, hey, what's being taught, you
Yes.
know.
And
they-
we've done that in the past. So
Okay.
we notify and then give them the opportunity to opt out. You are opting out of sex education. So you're not opting out of certain parts of sex education.
Gotcha, okay.
So if it's 3 weeks long for 10th grade, you're opting out of all 3 weeks.
Correct, okay. All right, that's the only questions I had, thank you. So really, you're not asking for anything because we're maintaining our current practice, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Ms. Jane?
Thank you. Can we go to slide 5? Okay, maybe it wasn't 5, sorry. Can we go to slide 7? Yes. So when you were discussing the 2012 versus the 2020, this was for pre-K through 12, correct?
Those
This-
were the national sex ed standards, yes, from 2012 right to 2020.
Okay, great. And can we go to slide 11? I really like this slide a lot because I think it helps visualize everything that you talked about in terms of all the categories that will be addressed. The only box that are not checked is that middle school gender identity and expression and sexual orientation and identity, which is new. And we're saying that we don't have clarity on what that means.
We're showing you here what our current practice has been. And to our best estimates is at least 5 to 6 years. This is what we've been providing in the sex education area.
But at some point, we will have to integrate those 2 empty boxes in the middle school portion.
Well, so right now, we're seeking clarification on that area because, if you're doing comprehensive sex education, that's what it would be considered a 10th grade because you're hitting all 7 strands. When you're looking at middle school, so right now the clarification is school districts are not required to provide sex education. If you do provide sex education, does it have to be comprehensive? And that's where we're getting the clarification on, and what does that mean? Does that mean you have to do it at every grade level then? So remember, in Illinois, one of the challenges is you have K-8 districts, you have high school districts, you have unit districts. And so for a high school district, and many of them that have been doing comprehensive sex education, in high school, many of them are like, we're going to continue doing what we're doing, which is providing comprehensive sex health education. Unit districts find themselves in a little bit of a challenging situation because if you've been providing comprehensive at 10th grade, what does that mean for 6th through 8th grade in that area? And you saw that part, I think, with the May under the IASB, the Illinois Association of School Board summary, where it also said you may provide it at K through 5 and stuff. So, it's definitely a challenge for unit districts to interpret what they're suggesting with the new mandates. I hope I clarified on
Yeah,
that.
I think that's really helpful because, you know, it's one thing to have a policy written out. It's another thing to operationalize it, which is what you guys are trying to explain to us so eloquently. And I really appreciate this visual and also the explanation about clarification on the timing of when those topics might be introduced. The last question I have is, do we see any changes being made? Well, I think Mr. Rising just asked this, between pre-K and fourth grade or fifth grade. There's really no changes to what we're doing or talking about.
In this presentation, we haven't suggested any changes for this school year. We're meeting with staff just like we always do to review our curriculum, and we would, if there were any changes to be made, we would come back to the board and bring those changes to the Board of Education.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Grover.
I just have a couple of questions. Could you speak to what instructions are being given to K through 4? As in what the personal and safety, I think it was health and safety they're learning. Do you have some idea what they're learning in K through 4?
So so personal health and safety, that is the umbrella term then for health and sex ed, you know, as we know it. So at this point in pre-K through fourth grade, we do have various health topics, as Mr. Rising said, that aren't associated at all with sex ed, that are happening, as well as safety, avoidance of accidents, things like that, that we do have throughout our typically PE curriculum.
Great, and that's what I was trying to get at. The only thing we're really doing is Aaron's Law, which is mandated.
Right.
But there's no sex ed taught to K through 4.
Correct.
And then the other thing you had mentioned, we have control over those resources that we're teaching.
That's right.
And parents are able to see the instructions prior to opting out or going with the program, correct?
Yeah, and that's been a process we've been going through in fifth grade. There were information evenings hosted and opportunities for parents to review the materials and ask questions and then opt out as a result of that. So that will continue.
Thank you.
Ms. Dumming.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. You know, I understand we needed to have this presentation, but and I just kind of want to make sure that I have it restated. SB 018 for us, what does that mean for us for this year and our students at K through 4, middle and high school? Are there any changes? I know we've been asking this, but.
No, for this year, the only changes that we've seen is just making sure that we have consistency of what's being done. Like at the high school level, we're trying to make sure that the experience that you would have at Metea would be the same as the experience you have at Niqua and Wabansi. I think over time you do see some challenges there, especially in a large district, and so we're just making sure that we have consistency there.
And that consistency for the upcoming school year is based on what was taught, what's been taught in our past years.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And again, I wanted to look at slide 11, like Ms. Jane did. And when I look at the middle school and grade 5 on gender identity and expression, sexual orientation and identity, there is no discussion at those levels regarding those topics, correct?
Those are not part of our curriculum strands at those grade levels, and so those shouldn't be associated with instructional materials at those grade levels.
Okay, and from a standpoint, I know you indicated there's clarification that you're seeking. Is that clarification to be, would it be effective, or is that regarding this year's topics of education, or would that be for next year?
For us, it'd be looking at what clarification we would need moving forward in general. That's this is pretty late in the phase to try to make changes for this school year.
Okay.
And as I said, there's quite a bit of clarification we would still like to have on this topic. As I said, it doesn't have amount of time. It doesn't have anything regarding specific grade levels and what, for instance, like if you're doing something at 6th grade, would you have to incorporate all strands at that level? Like, that's important information for us to know before we move forward at all on any, and get clarification from the state on, what they're implying by required, and then they chose to adopt the national sex education standards. And what would that mean for school districts on those standards, not just the strands?
Okay. Thank you. And then finally, just want to be sure I understand that parents have the opportunity to opt out of any particular strand regarding these topics, and it would be the entire, if it's a 1 week or a 1 day or a 3 week at the high school.
And that's the same of what that has been our practice. Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Fosdick.
Thank you for the presentation. I don't have any questions about our current health education practices. As a board member and as a parent who has had now 2 children go through all of the health education we have in our district, I've been pleased with it. Thank you.
Mr. Karubas.
I'd like to thank Ms. Fosdick for her brevity. I'm going to take a different take on the questions. I was looking at the act that we've been discussing here, and there was some discussion about us having the ability as a school district to adopt curriculum that meets the specific needs of our community. But the act does go on to say that all instruction and material may not conflict with the act. So although we may adopt curriculum that meets the specific needs of our community, any material that we use must comply with the act. So it's not a distinction, may not conflict. Is that what I said? Yeah. So I think that's an important distinction for us to all recognize. I do want to discuss the policies briefly. I mean, we mentioned them in the beginning of our presentation, and I do appreciate you always doing that. But these policies that we reference are freely available on our website under board policy. And board policy 2:260 is the one that deals with instructional material. And the board is the entity that should be approving all of the instructional material in the district. And so I know we're focused currently on the health portion, but I want to make sure that we all recognize that we are approving the instructional material. Obviously, there's some bumpers and constraints on it, but it is important. I think we as a board and a district need to develop a process that is more coherent with the board approving instructional material. And the same goes for curriculum. And I know the prior superintendent wanted to address this, and we've been dealing with a lot of emergencies recently, and we've been dealing with a lot of mandates. I recall going through Springfield mandated curriculum changes with the science. And so I think we as a board and a district need to look at the opportunity of looking at curriculum development across the district. And it's a big lift, and we might not have all the resources to fully do it currently, and there's time limitations. But I think This will help us be proactive in responding to some of the mandates. You kind of need to measure where you're at across the system, and doing that on the curriculum side and the instructional material side, I think will allow us all to function at a higher level. Once again, the policy 6:40 that you referenced in the slide, that talks about the school board adopting any curriculum in the district. So we need to all make sure that the board is the entity that is responsible for that, and we can discuss ways to do that. Do we want to have a board calendar, pick different curriculum, add it to the calendar at a certain time? Do we want a curriculum committee? But the policy talks about upon recommendation from the superintendent, so I know that the presentation was about health and not about globally looking at the system. But as a board member, we're supposed to take the 30,000 foot view, and this might be 50,000, but I think that those key areas will let us function better. And then the grievance policy, and that is the 2:260. A student, parent, and I paraphrase it, a student or parent having a complaint regarding any one of the following areas, including curriculum, instructional material, or a program, can file a complaint if they disagree with what's going on. They might not get the answer that they desire, but there's a process, there's a policy that deals with any complaints regarding curriculum and instructional material. So I think there is some processes and ramps to deal with some of these issues. That's it. No questions. Thanks.
Just a comment regarding that. So in our strategic plan, we do have in there about a curriculum review cycle. And so this summer, with the curriculum and instruction team, we have started to have conversations about what that's going to look like. For many years, the district was focused on growth and making sure that there were enough seats for students as we tried to deal with that growth. And then, towards the end of, sometime between 2008, 2010, I believe, is when we also made significant cuts, which also had an impact on our, curriculum review processes at that time. So one of the first steps we've been working on right now is actually trying to do a look back. What has been adopted and what's been formally adopted. And our first step is trying to look back at the last 15 years to see what has been done, which will help us focus on what that path looks like moving forward. Getting to a part where we do have a regular review of our curriculum, including instructional materials associated with those things. We will see different challenges, especially with our multi-tiered systems of support and what's tier 1 versus tier 2 versus tier 3 and all those interventions. So it, there's going to be definitely challenges associated with and hoping that we don't get stagnant either at a point where we're not providing some of those best resources to meet students' needs and help support as many students as possible.
Still no further questions.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you to everyone for your comments and questions. And Mr. Krubis, I have noted your thoughts about curriculum and instructional materials and the board's role. So it's something that we will work further in the future. I do think that there is a lot of vagueness in the different bills that we talked about tonight, that we will have more and more discussions about this. I think the bottom line here is we're not changing anything this year. I do always see ISBE, IASB also always pursuing local control on different topics, so I will assume that they will continue to allow us to have local control over what resources we use, as long as it is not in conflict with national rules. I also think that we haven't changed our sex ed, health ed curriculum in many years. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure the last time it was changed. So
Right.
we're trying, we continue to try to investigate to look at, Grant's been in this position for a few years. Prior to that, Brian was in that position, and that wasn't under him either, so I'm trying to.
It's been a significant amount of time since the last major revision of
Right.
the curriculum, yes.
So if people are thinking that we're changing a bunch of stuff the last few years, we haven't.
No.
So I think that's important for the public to know. And, you know, it's an important area for our students across the different grade levels. And we'll continue to make sure that we are properly supporting the needs in this area of sex ed and health education. So thank you so much. All right. Our last area is legislative advocacy and Board of Education update. Does anyone have any items to discuss?
Were you gonna say, or
What?
can I say something before you
Yes.
say the thing that, I just wanted to make the board aware that I'll be attending the next Lenda meeting because Lori can't make it, so
Right.
I'll report back on what takes place at that meeting, but I just wanted you to all know that I'll be attending that in absence of Lori, who can't be there.
On Friday, this Friday, and it's the first meeting of the year.
23rd, right? 20.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. And it's in person for the first time in over a year or 2 years. So that will be interesting. So thank you for agreeing to attend that. Look forward to hearing what's on the legislative agendas in the state right
And
now.
just for our community, because I just said LEND, right?
Uh-huh.
LEND is the Legislative Education Network for DuPage County. That's kind of our lobbying group for DuPage County school districts.
Right, they look at actions that are going on in Springfield and across the state related to education and help us understand what they are and also help create positions from the area. So I think that I don't have any other items in this area, and I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you, we're adjourned.